everybody, and welcome to lucky number 3 of Visibility. I have with me my co-host, Michael Doise. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Alicia. It's good. We're on the third episode. This is becoming a regular thing.
Oh, it's not regular until we reach 21, because that's when we actually make it a habit.
No, that's when you're all grown up.
Oh, really? All right, then.
Drinking age, drinking age.
I meant episode 21, but okay.
That's what I mean, too. Drinking, it's almost like years. I mean, if this goes for 21 years, that's going to be a long time.
I hope it goes for 21 years. Right? I hope this podcast is around long enough to see 21 years.
If they're even called podcasts in 21 years.
I know. That could be like brain broadcasts or something. We could have a chip in our head. Braincast. Okay. I should probably introduce the other mysterious voice in the background. We have brought along our guest, Taylor Arndt. Hello. Hello,
hey,
Taylor.
Alicia. I am back again. This is awesome.
All right. Today's episode, the right tool for the right job. We're talking tech tools today. Tech tools for your business. Stuff to automate your life, what you need to do, best software for you, etc., etc. Recommendations will happen here. Tons. All right. You want to kick this one off, Michael?
Sure. So I thought it would be a good topic to talk about. If you're starting a business, we talked about how to form a business last time. And this time it's what are some of the best tools to make it to where you can run your business effectively without the headaches. And, there's good practices, there's bad practices, and we'll talk about those today, I think. And so it's important to think about if you're starting a business, what are some ideas for tools that you can use for your business, and it all depends on the type of business and the size of the business. Techopolis is like my business is a little bit bigger than, say, what Taylor and Alicia are doing for their businesses. So what I might use is different from what they might use. And so we'll have a range of perspectives on this podcast. And then I'll also bring in some perspectives that I know from some other friends that are doing business. And we'll kind of go through those things. So let's talk about just kind of the basics here. And that is, what software should you use to manage your everyday life with your business? So I'm talking about your software. When you get up in the morning and you start work, what is the first thing you typically do is check your email. And I think there's a wide range of applications that people use to do this. I can tell you for me, Mac Mail is my preference, but Alicia and Taylor, what do you guys use?
I use the Mail app for iPad or Samsung Mail on my phone. Basically, it's simple as that. It's already there. I just have all of my emails on one page in the app, in the Apple email app. And for the Samsung app, I just have my business email. But for personal emails, I just have for personal emails and company Gmail for Techopolis, since we work together. I have Gmail on my phone. I don't feel the need to download another app on my iPad, since my iPad actually has a immaculate email app. The Samsung app is I kind of just use that to peer at emails whenever I don't have access to my iPad and kind of respond to them. But if I want to do things like schedule an email or attach something, just more extravagant stuff, I would be more apt to use my iPad. So yeah, there you go.
If I'm on Windows, which I'm a Windows user, I use a combination. So for a while, I was using Windows Mail. I've kind of had a lot of problems with that, so I've kind of gone back to my old trusty friend, Outlook. Now, of course, with the whole One Outlook thing, basically a whole new client for Outlook. They're combining everything, mail, contacts, calendars, you name it. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm using. Outlook, I can manage my calendar through Outlook. All my emails are through Outlook, and it works great. On my phone, I just use the Mail app. most of the time. I do have Outlook installed though, because sometimes like if I want to look at calendars and things, it just syncs up really nice. So I do actually use the Outlook app as well.
Okay. So, yeah, I use, Apple Mail pretty much everywhere. I'm just always in the Apple ecosystem. So Apple Mail just works for me. I can tell you that it's, there are certain things that don't work as well on it, but I think it works great. I use the calendar app and all those things I stay so much on my Mac. I really only go into Windows for gaming and things like that. So it's, you use what works. And it's interesting. Taylor you use Outlook, but I think, for what most people use in a typical work environment that just use Office 365 and Outlook and all those things, I think most people are kind of switching away from the standard just using Outlook for all business communications now, because it doesn't have to be the only way of doing work. What about word processors? What do you guys use? I've gotten to where I use Pages and Numbers and Keynote as my preferred, but Docs, Sheets, and Slides are my kind of secondary. But what do you guys use? Because in the typical workplace, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint are the ones that you use. And I just feel like if I was on Windows, I would still use those. I do like them on Windows. But as a Mac user, they are not the best experience visually or with a screen reader. So what are y'all's thoughts?
Since I got a hold of my iPad, I have fallen in love with Pages, and I hope to use it on the Mac as well because it's just so simple and so easy, and everything's an icon, and it's accessible. It's fully accessible. Everything's an icon, and it's easily formatted in a way that's easy to understand. I have fallen in love with Pages, and I want to keep using that once I get my Mac. But my secondary is probably Google Docs. As far as spreadsheets go, I haven't tried out Numbers. I haven't tried out Numbers yet for Apple, but I have gotten my hands on Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel. Now, Microsoft Excel, I don't know. Google Sheets, I still don't know. I don't know, man. I just don't screw with spreadsheets all that often. Now, for presentation software, probably Keynote. I haven't used Keynote very long. I kind of played around with it this morning because I'm working on a webinar. But I think Keynote is probably going to be one thing I use a lot. I'm liking it so far. Probably going to use it on my Mac whenever I get that. But now, Slides is probably my secondary. I do like Slides. It has wonderful themes. It's really easy to use, and it's worked, especially if I couldn't get a hold of something like Microsoft PowerPoint. Now they have a free version, but if you don't, it's kind of limited. So best option is to go with a free software like Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, rather than paying something, if you're a small business, especially, if you have Apple, it's probably best to go for something like Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. Or if you don't, and you've got a small business and you're starting to get started and you don't really have the money to fund something like Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, you can go for something like Docs, Sheets, and Slides. So, yeah.
I like that. My whole thing is I'm opposite of these two, and I kind of use the standard workplace software. Now, being an accountant and bookkeeper and all these financial titles that I have, spreadsheets unfortunately are everyday part of my life. For that reason, because of accessibility and just how widely adopted it is, I use Excel. If I were to do something else, I'd probably do Sheets next. I do have Apple devices, but I just find that Windows is a lot better for me. Of course, I do use a screen reader full time, so it does enhance my liking of Windows. The other thing that I will say, though, is that depending on, who you are or what you do, different software, like I said, is going to work for everybody. And the PowerPoint and Office suite There is a free version, as Alicia alluded to. It is an online-only version, I believe, and it has limited features, but you can also get a personal email, and that's what I actually do. Is I just have Office signed up to a personal and then just use that both for business and personal. That is a really, really great way that I do it, because I always need Office anyway, so I just kind of have it that way. But yeah, that is kind of, the standard software, just the Word, Excel, PowerPoint for all of my Office needs.
Yeah, and for a personal account, Office is fairly inexpensive. It's like $70 a year, which is not
Something like
terrible.
that, yeah.
Yeah, it's not terrible, and that gets you the desktop applications.
Mhm.
So if you're a Windows user, that's not a bad deal, because it's just not. Now a family license is $99. So that's really not a bad deal either for 5 or 6 users. So it just depends on what you need. I will always keep a copy of Office around, just because sometimes I'm in Windows, sometimes I need to use those things. Now, go ahead.
I will mention, if you have it pre-installed on your device, so like if it comes with Windows, like if it not comes with Windows, but if your device is, like, say if you get like a new Windows laptop or whatever, and that laptop comes pre-installed with Word and Excel and PowerPoint and things like that, you do get access to the free version. You don't have to use the online. You just have to make sure you have to make sure you sign in. You just get super limited cloud space, and you get super limited use of it.
Let's make sure that people understand, though, that when they typically have it installed, you are not getting Office for free.
No.
You're getting the applications for free, and typically what happens is you get 3 months free of Office.
Yes.
Yeah.
You never get a free Office install. So yeah, you will need to, your computer will give you 3 months to use it, and then you have to pay for Office. But yes, that is, they give you a trial, and then you can go on from there. But again, it's like $70 a year, so it's not.
Yeah, especially for personal. Unless if you want like a special domain, like name at yourbusiness.com or whatever, you definitely have to buy a business office so that you can get those compatibilities.
And for people, if you're interested in knowing, it's about $7.50 for the basic. If you go monthly, $6 on the yearly paid monthly, which makes no sense. And it's, if you want the desktop apps for that, it's about $15 monthly and $12.50 if you want the commitment to a year and pay monthly. So it's like weird. And that's per user, not per family. That's per user. So it's a little bit more expensive, but you do get a lot more. You get access to access and other publisher and other things that you will not get on the personal plan.
Publisher. Oh my goodness.
But they're all great. Every solution you pick is going to be good. I mean, if you're a Linux user, there's like LibreOffice and OpenOffice and other things, I guess. But yeah, I would just still go with Google Docs.
Yeah.
And slides and sheets, because you can just open a web browser. The one issue with those, though, is you do have to be on the web. If you are where you do not have internet, there's limited capabilities for those. They do have offline modes, though, as a web apps, which is interesting.
They do, yes.
So those are your options. Pick what works best for you. Let's talk about, we've talked about email in our Office suites, and that's what I was kind of getting at earlier when I said we're off word processors. I'm in Office suites. So whatever software you're going to pick, you want to make sure that it's customized to what you need and not what others think you need for your business. That's the important thing here for business software. I did mention Office, like word processors earlier, but I felt like there's so much to just, talk about here that we should bring it up all the way to Office Suites. That's why I mentioned Numbers, Keynotes, and all those other things.
Yeah.
But the one thing to remember, though, is typically if you pick a word processor, you're getting the whole suite. If you're picking a spreadsheet, you're getting the whole suite of applications. So,
Yep.
and they do work best together. Just remember, too, that if you pick Google, it has to be online. It has to be over the internet. And there are some offline capabilities and things like that, but just keep that in mind.
It's pretty limited.
So let's talk about, I guess, one of the things that, you could use a basic word processor during meetings and storing information. But what are some tools that we use? I think a lot of people call these suites your second brain. And I think Alicia knows what I'm talking about with this. But softwares like Notion or things like that. And I know, Alicia, you've used Notion. I've used it. It's not accessible. So I'm curious what you guys use. I'm really kind of keen on this new Devon Think for Mac because that's what works for me. But what do you guys use as your place to collect thoughts, information, and to do things with it?
Oh my God, yes. So I use, obviously I use Notion. Notion is like my second brain. It is where I go to put my thoughts down. It's where I go to organize my thoughts. It's where I go to brainstorm. It's where I go to like make plans, have to-do lists. It's where I go to it's where I go to do a lot of things. Schedule something. Like I have things that I do in Notion that like nobody knows about. It is my entire second brain. It is where everything goes to hibernate. Like it is my thoughts. It is my thoughts in a server. It is my thoughts in a cloud. It's really what it is. If you don't know what Notion is, it's basically like it's pretty much a hub for pretty much every type of information you can account for. Like there's different blocks and headings and you can assort them. You can use it to take notes. You can use it to track projects. You can use it as your calendar. You can use it as you can use it to create tons of different things. And some people have even used it to create their websites, which I think is absolutely insane. I'm going on a tangent.
I've even seen people using it to make job applications.
Right. Absolutely. It's crazy what you can do with Notion. And it's kind of sad, really, because the first thing people think whenever they open up a page in Notion is, whoa, okay, blank page, unlimited possibilities with all this other crap to do. I'm overwhelmed. So if you're going to use Notion, I would recommend first seeing if it's accessible enough for you to use it, because it is kind of inaccessible. It's not really quite it's more of a low vision software than it is a totally blind software, I will admit. The second thing you're probably going to want to do is like watch a tutorial on it, because it does a lot of things. You can use it for a lot of things. So it's important to like know what you want to do with it. Third, I would recommend checking out the template store, because they do have a template store. And that template store can give you a bunch of different ideas. So yeah, check out Notion. Michael, you want to tell people about Devon Think?
Yeah, but I'll do that. But Taylor, what do you use? Because I'm kind of curious, because a lot of these tools are not usable for you.
I don't have one at the moment, and I do need one. I don't, like I said, I can't find anything that's accessible that I like, so I don't really have anything at the moment.
So
I'm gonna have to look into that. Maybe
Taylor,
we can find you one.
Have you looked into Microsoft Loop anymore?
I have, but it's like there's still a lot of unlabeled components and stuff.
That's interesting, because the iOS app is actually pretty good for Loop, and so that would be interesting if they do make the web version better.
But I have not tried it all in a while, so I will admit that.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to follow up with. And we could have podcasts on each of these applications in full, but we just don't have time for that right now. So, we're just starting this podcast, but we may later on. But Devon Think is an app for Mac, and we may do a comparison article on the iAccessibility report about this because I think it'd be very interesting to compare Notion and Devon Think. Devon Think is very accessible, at least its desktop and mobile apps are. Their web server is not so much, which was kind of a shame because we were hoping that Taylor could use that. But, that saved me $499. So, that's okay. And so Devon Think lets you do what Notion does. I don't know if Notion lets you do RSS feeds, but I can import RSS into Devon Think. I could scan documents and read text and pull text from them with Devon Think. And it's the most secure second brain software I've ever seen because it stores it on your computer.
We need to coin this term, second brain software. Registered trademark. Registered trademark.
But what it does is it stores it on your computer, and then you can store your information in iCloud. But if you store it in iCloud, you have to you have to set a password. So if I go and sync up that database on iCloud from another computer, I have to enter that password. Same with Dropbox or WebDAV, which is a way to store files on a web server where you can just access it. So it does support collaboration, but it requires extreme security to use. So I really like that. It's because I've known people that have said Notion does have major security vulnerabilities, which is kind of a sad thing. Especially if you're a developer writing custom code, you really don't want that custom code that's not open source to get out in the public domain. And so you don't want to always store it in Notion or things like that. A lot of people use Obsidian, but even that has accessibility problems. It's a very neat application, but again, problems with accessibility. Although I may eventually look at comparing the two of the three of those because I'm always looking for the best tool at the right time, So it's very interesting to look at all of these, but I think it's good to pick one. And Notion is kind of that middle ground where people can use it, if you're low vision. But I would say if you're totally blind, then look for other alternatives, Loop or other things for. Even Drafts is a good way to just get information down. The Drafts app, which of course there's one problem with that too, not for Windows. So Taylor's just kind of at a disadvantage no matter what she does. So
yes, I am, but it's okay.
But she makes do. But I think that if you want to be very efficient, these second brain apps, as we are trademarking, are very useful.
Oh, they are. I mean, and I'm not going to discount that. In fact, what I'm actually doing right now is I'm trying Loop again as we speak on this podcast.
Ooh.
So that's why I've been muted, because I've been trying Loop and I've been getting a whole bunch of emails. So it's been like, So, yeah.
So
that has been what I've been doing.
You know what?
I'll keep you posted.
I'm thinking maybe, Michael, we do an iAccessibility report. Maybe I can find some alternatives to Notion and maybe write about them, talk about them, maybe just like a listicle of different like Notion alternatives that are more accessible.
That'd be cool.
And maybe I'll do some research and play around, because I know Devon Think. I might have to get access to your Devon Think, because let me tell you, I'm not going to pay $199 a year. I'm sorry.
Well, you're on an iPad, and they have what's called Devon Think to go, which is I think they do a $45 lifetime, or it's either a year or lifetime, or $2 and something a month.
Makes me wonder if there's a family share, if I can access it.
I'm wondering. But the neat thing about the Devon Think to go is you get all of the capabilities. You just don't get the one thing you cannot do is add RSS feeds in the to go app. So a lot of that stuff some of those things have to be initiated from the Mac version, but you can add a vault, so the database, or add a database, whatever they call them, and we can go from there. So it'll be interesting to try out.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I can. do some research on like these sort of second brain softwares and see if there are any others out there, because I'm sure there are. It's just a matter of like trying to figure out like which ones are going to be the best,
right,
for people like us.
I'll be very interested how this goes, because we've been looking at this for like over a year. So it's all good information. But I think we should probably move on to our next topic.
Yes.
And I think we should talk about, because this is another big issue, is communication, as in phones.
Woo.
You know,
oh boy,
we all have cell phones, at least I would imagine.
Duh.
I mean, I spoke to somebody today that didn't, and that was surprising.
Oh, brother.
So yeah, so it's very interesting to hear what other people have, you know. So we all have smartphones, and most business owners do. But what should you use your smartphone, your personal number, for business? And I would say no. I would say no. And the reason is that if you get a phone call, you don't know who it's from. It could be your personal, or it could be business, or it could be spam. And you
Right.
don't know if you should answer your phone saying, "Hey, this is Michael, what's up?" Or, "Techopolis Online Solutions, this is Michael, how can I help you?"
Right.
Right. Right. Absolutely right.
So it's good to have that separation, so you know to address somebody as a business contact, or if you're addressing somebody personally. And there are several ways to do that. So at Techopolis, we are using Zoom Phone, but there's other ways too. And Taylor, why don't you talk about one of the ways that you've used, that you're getting rid of it, but it is a useful solution for business owners that need this through their carrier. So why don't you talk about your Verizon setup that you had?
So right now, like I said, I'm getting rid of it just because it's, a pain and it's kind of pricey. But I had an extra line on actually it was another line. I don't know. It's an extra line that connects to my business phone number. Now, the advantage to this is that you will get the same call quality that you get if you did a standard call. The same audio quality and so on and so forth. The disadvantage is that it's a lot more expensive. And what I found out yesterday with Verizon is that I have to do a user recertification security check every 3 months. That basically boils down to answering a whole bunch of questions about your business every 3 months, the same questions over and over again. Kind of annoying. So I would say for those businesses who are really, really small, like myself, I would just say get a Zoom phone. Like, don't even bother with Verizon, because I think it's meant for more bigger businesses. But if you are a bigger business, then, maybe if you have employees, maybe then you could look at Verizon or other carrier solutions. Again, it just all depends on what floats your boat. The other thing I had was a Verizon Business Internet through them. That was a good thing. However, I just didn't feel like I used it enough. So with that reason, I'm just like, well, I think I'm just going to get rid of this now because I don't use it. But those are kind of all of the solutions and things that I've used in the past.
Yeah, so it's really depending on what you need. And Zoom Phone is a good option because it is $15 a month on top of if you have Zoom meetings and things like that. So it's not bad. You pay once for your numbers. You keep them. They're yours. So like Techopolis has a very techie phone number, and I love it. It's 2 technology-based numbers in it. There's 512, which is, a typical RAM size, and then 2048.
I'd be careful with that.
Well, that's fine. People can have our number.
All right.
People can have our number.
We don't want the wrong one getting the number, though. The
wrong people. Yeah. So, yeah, it has a 512 and a 2048. And it has, those 2 bits of information that make it sound very techy. So the rest of it, you'll have to either go to our website whenever that's up there or figure it out. And so it is very nice because you pick your number, you keep it, and it's just a very good way to, use a business phone. You also get You can set up an IVR where somebody can record, like, press 1 for this, press 2 for that. So that's very useful. You can have office hours on the Zoom phone. You can set all of that up. So it's really a nice phone situation.
I have questions.
Sure.
So can someone text you? Or is it
Yes.
just phone calls?
Yes.
Okay. How would you receive calls and texts?
With a Zoom
So you have the Zoom app on your phone. Now, I don't know if people can text the main number in Zoom phone unless you assign your line directly to the main number, which you can do. But like for Techopolis, we have the main number go to, it rings multiple, like it rings an IVR. Now, for example, Taylor has another phone number that she purchased on the Zoom that she can text from. That's her business number that connects to Techopolis. So that is, you can text from those lines, but like the Techopolis number cannot text itself.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So when you answer a call, is it going to be like, are you going to get like something from Zoom? Is something from Zoom going to pop up, or is there going to be like a normal, like, how would you?
A window from Zoom, a Zoom window comes up and you answer the call, but you can also, cool as this is, move that call into a Zoom meeting.
Yes, and I've done that.
That's so
many
cool.
times.
Yeah.
So you can answer it on your computer.
You can answer on your computer. Well, not just answer on your computer, but you can answer a call and then make it into a Zoom meeting so then other participants can join the call.
Oh, wow.
On Zoom.
Oh, wow. So you can do like a whole conference.
I've done that and it works.
I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense because people can dial into Zoom meetings with their phone. So it makes sense.
Yep. So there's other options as well. Like there is pretty much every, one of these meeting platforms, even Teams with an office plan has something like this. Google has Google Voice, and they have, if you have Workspace, like we could get the Google Voice for Workspace, but I think that's $20 a month.
I just think so.
So there are other options, but I found Zoom Phone to be one of the best. Now, there's also ways that you can roll your own system, and we have friends that do this through a service called VoIP.ms, VoIP.ms, and they use an app called Groundwire, and they could even set up their own SIP phones, SIP phones, and they're like desktop phones that can actually make calls, and it's actually cheaper than Zoom Phone. You only pay for what you need, which is kind of neat. So it's much cheaper, but it's more work to set up your own system instead of just pressing some buttons and Zoom Phone's on. Now, I will say the Zoom Phone interface in their app is not or setting it up is not the cleanest, but it does work. So it's really all in what you want to do and how complicated you want your setup to be. But I will tell you, like, the VoIP.ms is very customizable. There's another service called Twilio, which lets you do a lot more customization. So those are all things that you could look into. But Zoom Phone is really, when you're starting out, it's pretty easy to get set up.
I have another option.
Okay.
It's very quick and dirty, and I don't really recommend it. I would recommend going with one of these nicer options here. But if you absolutely have absolutely no funding to be able to have a business line, and you think you need a business line, or you feel like a business line is a smart idea, then considering like these VoIP phone number services for free, like something like Viber or maybe TextNow is an option. Even TextNow, I think, will give you like a SIM card now that you can put in another phone and use that, and it's like actually a number. You don't really have to pay much money for it. But the drawback with something like TextNow is, yeah, it's free, but you're also going to be riddled with ads everywhere whenever you go to like message people and communicate with people. And you're also, if you don't receive calls to that number, you have to find out how to text somebody or call somebody, because let me tell you, there is a 30-day period. If you do not get any calls or you do not receive any calls, you do not text people on that number for 30 days, you lose that number. So you can't get it back. You have to change it. I think it's easier to go with one of those nicer options like these business phones or Zoom phone or Google Voice or VoIP MS or just these nicer options. But if that is like your only route, it's an okay option.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to mention with anything that you're going to use, when you've heard the saying, I'm sure you tell me who you hang around with, I'll tell you who you are, kind of thing. That goes for business owners too. If you use a tool that is kind of subpar and people kind of know that, then they're going to judge the quality of your business. That's just the reality of it. So when you're looking at these things, do what you can and, look at the reputation of these tools that you're using and say, how will my clients or customers feel about my business based on the tools that I use? Does that make sense? So if you feel like something is, usable but inexpensive, but kind of may not work the best, then evaluate what will my customers think if I call them with this, right? What do my customers think if I call them with lower than average voice quality? What do my customers think if I have to jump through hoops to get them to do something when another company can offer a more automated solution? Those are all important things to really think about whenever you're starting your business. I always look at people that start businesses with Cash App and Venmo, and I'm like, I don't know that I'd buy from them. I don't know that I'd buy from them, because those are personal services that are now being used for business, and I just don't feel like those should mash up. But people do it, and I just don't. I would be very hesitant to purchase from those businesses. Whereas somebody with Stripe or PayPal, even PayPal is a little more reputable, and PayPal and Venmo are the same company, I believe.
Yep.
So even PayPal is a little more reputable than Venmo, and so I'm going to be more apt to pick that company that has the more reputable business tools than somebody that's, oh yeah, you can Cash App me, which Cash App is owned by Square. So do your research. You'll find out that even these tools like Square or Stripe, they don't have much of a barrier to entry. So take the time instead of just saying, I'm just going to sell my stuff using Cash App. No, go look at what's actually out there for businesses. You'll be surprised what you can get for relatively inexpensive, costs.
No, there is Venmo for business now.
Yeah, I was about to say there is. And you can
is.
set up a seller profile and you can invoice people. It's not like a request for payment. No, you can actually invoice people.
Yes, you can. And my client uses it.
Yeah, exactly. You can use these tools for business. You just have to create a business profile on them. You can create a business profile that is secondary from your personal profile. So it funnels in to your personal account. So like, let's say if you have a bank account linked to your Venmo, it's going to funnel into that account, but it's going to mark it as a business transaction rather than a personal transaction. It's still it's an easy service. It's not as reputable right now, but I'm sure as more people start using it, it will become more reputable. And I should also mention that there is such a thing as business Cash App, which is weird because Cash App is owned by Square, but there is such a thing as business Cash App. And
I don't recommend either of those. And I'll tell you why. Because if they're funneling into your personal bank account, you're still going to get a 1099 if you go over $600. And then, QuickBooks, you'll have to go through and mark all of those transactions. It's still a big mess. And, if you just
do that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm the bookkeeper in the room. Don't do that.
That's
my job.
It's a very big hassle. I mean, if you don't have a lot of business expenses or if you're not a big business, if you're just kind of doing a side, freelance kind of thing, if it's not your mainstay, then that's fine. Like if it's a hobbyist business, like okay, I might use that if I start building and selling computers, right? If I started building and selling computers on the side because I enjoy doing that and it's fun to me and I could sell them after I build them, I might use Cash App or Venmo Business, right? That would be a good use case for that.
Yes.
But if I'm moving through several $1,000s a month of contracts and invoices and things like that, it is not a good thing to use those kinds of tools.
No.
Like an Etsy store, maybe. But a bigger business or even what you're doing, Alicia, as a freelance writer, I don't know that I would use a tool for that. Like Venmo or Cash
I
App,
wouldn't,
just
no.
because
Absolutely not. No, I don't
Yeah.
recommend it either.
Yeah, there's too many pitfalls with doing that kind of a
Yeah.
thing, and too many ways that things can go wrong. And actually, we kind of segued into another area, which is payment processors. And so, if you're running a business and you're not doing a hobby business, Stripe, Square,
QuickBooks.
we use all of these: Stripe, Square, QuickBooks, PayPal.
HoneyBook. I love my HoneyBook. I have
Well,
only had it for like a couple weeks, but I can tell you, like, HoneyBook actually does have their own payment processor, and you can invoice someone and
I thought they
get
used
paid
Stripe.
through. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, they probably go through Stripe, but like they have their own, like, yeah, they're powered by Stripe, but they still have like their own like invoicing system and things like that. It's just powered by Stripe. Like, sure, they use Stripe to like process, but it is their own like custom built around the Stripe platform. So I like HoneyBook because it's cool. It can do more than just payment processing.
Now, for reference, Stripe is like all of the other systems, but what makes Stripe different is it is a completely customizable payment processor. It is actually built for developers. So it is not the most front end centric. So when Stripe came out, you could hardly do anything with graphics. It was all based on building up web pages around Stripe, which is very difficult when you want to use it for certain things, right?
Yeah, which now I know how to do that, but still.
They're adding more and more features like Stripe with Link, where you can, have a portal from Stripe, but all of those things are late in the game. They did not start out that way. It was very much code centric first, but they offered some of the best deals to get started too. When all of this started, Square was only a brick and mortar business system first. Even for websites, for buying things, it was brick and mortar only. It was not a digital goods company.
Right.
So Stripe was kind of the way you had to start for digital goods. And so it's very interesting, that there's so many options now. I mean, PayPal was also one of the original ones out the gate too. So those were kind of the three that, you had to work with. But my recommendation is look at all four of them and pick the one. Well, we use all of them for different reasons. Although we don't really use PayPal because of their outrageous fees.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, PayPal. Sorry, not sorry.
So it just depends on what works for you in that situation. I love that I could just go to Invoice.new in any web browser and quickly fire off an invoice in seconds. That to me is amazing. And
Right.
That's Stripe.
Right.
So it just depends on your workflow. HoneyBook is great. There are a very few accessibility issues in that software, but it works well on mobile, works on desktop. It's a good CRM and payment system and all those things.
I love HoneyBook because it is a very good all-in-one type software. It does contracts, it does payment processing, it does a CRM. You can use it as a CRM. It does project management, it does time tracking, it does appointment scheduling, it does all of the It does all of the freelance things. And I'm sure those things are not just freelance things, but for me, it does all of the freelance things. I think it's amazing in the week I've used it so far, because now today works exactly 7 days since I've used it, because I purchased it last Monday and just started playing around with it. And now I'm like, yes, HoneyBook all the way. But I started with just using an invoice software and using like I started using like an invoice software. I started using Zoho CRM, which is free, but it's also a mess. I started using Stripe, and let me tell you, I liked Stripe. Stripe was actually okay for me. It was easy to use. I could go ahead and set up an invoice. It was super quick. But what Stripe didn't do was contracts. Square did contracts, but I didn't really like how you had to go to your computer just to send a contract. You had to go to your computer. You couldn't use it from the app. You couldn't do any of that. You had to go to the computer. The Square was just for invoices, like especially the mobile app. So I had to find a solution where I didn't have to worry about that. I wanted to make sure that contracts got signed. Then I found DocuSign. DocuSign was a bit too expensive for my liking, especially since all it was for was signing documents. It was not the right software for me. Then Adobe Acrobat came around, and well, that's like $32 a month. It does more, but it's still kind of outrageous, especially if you just want to use it to sign documents, because you might not use all of the other features that it has. So yeah, I fell upon HoneyBook because of the price. It's literally like, I got the starter plan, which is like $135 a year. And when you first start, it's going to be like $105 a year. And then like then there's like a $16 plan and something like that. I don't know. It doesn't go up that high. It's not that expensive. As we pointed out, though, it does have some accessibility issues in the web version of it, but the mobile version is really intuitive and actually really easy to use accessibly.
And it can be worked around, the accessibility issues. I can send contracts.
Yeah, it's just a few unlabeled buttons here and there. But if you click them, you can find out what they are. It's not that hard.
And most of them are styling.
Right. Most of them are styling, and there's one for like refer and earn. But you can also access that somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter that you can't access that one specific button. And some of those other buttons can be accessed somewhere else. So there are workarounds, and you can get around it. And I feel like HoneyBook needs some improvement, but you can get around it for the most part, and it's pretty easy to use. So I will tell you though, setting it up is very overwhelming because it does so much. It's kind of like another Notion. I would like look at a tutorial or something like that to get it set up, because it is kind of like another Notion. It's like one of those big spaces that does a bunch of things. It does all of the things in one place. So it's a bit busy and it's a bit overwhelming, but once you figure it out, you're going to love it, especially if you need an all-in-one software like I do.
So I've signed Techopolis up to use this, and I feel like it's very easy to sign up. It's very easy to get started through the app. You can have, now the contracts through the app were very basic compared to what you can do on the computer. But I'm always the skeptic, or I did not used to be the skeptic, but when I hear of a product that costs as little as HoneyBook, I always ask, what is the catch? How are they getting away with having a product that is so inexpensive that can do so many things? And I always kind of worry about those kind of things, because there's no such thing as a free lunch. And this is pretty close. And I mean, let's look at, Google. with many of their products. Like for the free products that we get as Gmail users, they're scraping all of our data to get that, and we're the product, not the customer. So I always kind of wonder with things like HoneyBook, what's really are we the people they're marketing to, or are there businesses that they're marketing to? So I don't know. I still got it because it was the best deal for what we can do, but I'm always going to have, what's that term? Constant vigilance.
I think the way they make their money is like on the enterprise plans.
Yeah, really.
Well, yes, but again, Google makes money off their enterprise plans too. But I'm wondering what data they're selling to enterprise plans and things like that. So it all is just in the matter of, what are they doing? How are they collecting information? And are they being sneaky, about it? But again, it's kind of like, anything else. You use what you can use to get the job done. It's interesting that I've never heard of HoneyBook until a few weeks ago. And then all of a sudden I have. And I've been around the internet quite a bit, so that also kind of makes me a little funny. I've heard
about it, yeah, and then I forgot about it. So
Yeah,
I've heard of course, HubSpot, Zoho, all the other big CRMs, Jetpack CRM, but this is kind of a first for this one for me. So it's always, when you hear about something you've never really heard of in the big circles, it's kind of like, well, why aren't more people using this? I guess that's kind of why aren't more people taking advantage of the good deals, right?
I think I know why. It's not marketed very well. Like the only like real marketing I found, it was on TikTok, but the only real marketing I found was them turning like vlogs of people using it into ads. Like I saw like this person that was like, welcome to a day in the life, and then it was talking about like how she uses HoneyBook for her freelance stuff, and it wasn't like necessarily meant to be an ad, and it was turned into an ad. Granted, she probably selected that permission so that they could do that, and she probably gave them permission, but it's not really marketed very well. And I think that's why it's so, the demand hasn't gone up as much because they're not marketing it so hard. They're not pushing it out there. Like, I feel like there's just not as many people that know about it. And I feel like that's kind of why they get away with the low prices, because they don't have a lot of people and they're trying to get more people in.
Right. I think we're getting close to the top of the hour, but I think there's one more, we're past the top of the hour technically, but for the sake of the podcast, I think we're getting close. I think we should talk about websites. Like, if you're starting a business, how do you get your website up and going quickly? And that's something I think we all have some experience in. And there's several things that you can do here. One thing that I would recommend people look at, I know everybody else is going to groan and say, oh God, but if you are a business owner and you're low vision or you have sight, the easiest way to do it is Squarespace. That really is the quickest way.
Oh.
Oh my God.
I actually like Squarespace from a visual point of view because it does make accessible websites on the front end. It's just the back end that's hideous.
I haven't tried it, so I would not know.
Yeah, you can actually make very nice looking websites with Squarespace. It's really drag and drop, but they're really trying. Like, I could tell that they're really trying to make it accessible, but just the way that they market it and the way that they built it just does not work with a keyboard. Now, what's really neat is that the Squarespace mobile app does make things accessible. There's like move up and move down buttons for the menus and some really cool stuff that you could do on mobile. And I mean, it's really not a bad experience, and they're not a bad company. They do some, there's some kind of in some weird waters with domains right now. But the funny thing is, Squarespace doesn't do their own domains. Did y'all know that? Well, Taylor does.
Could that be why they bought Google domains?
No, because I bet I don't think that Squarespace. So Squarespace does all their domains through a company called Tucows, Tucows, and they were very well known back in like the 90s and 2000s. I think they did download.com and a bunch of other places, but they're also known for another website called Hover. So when I moved a domain from Hover to Squarespace, it was like that 4 hours, boom, done, because they're both owned by Tucows. And so I think that, and Tucows is a great company. And so it's very interesting knowing that their domains are through there, but you can buy your domain through there. You can get their reseller of Google Workspace. So you can get your email and all that set up through there. You can do all those things, and it just works really well. And it's just a great drag and drop experience. So they also have a good stock photo library. So check that out. But DreamHost is another good one. And that's who we've been using until recently. We're, well, kind of half and half. And they're great. They have shared hosting and VPSs and managed WordPress hosting as well.
All right.
And really, DreamHost's managed WordPress hosting is about the same price as a Squarespace site. So it just depends on if you like your websites WordPressed or if you like them Squarespaced.
What about Wix? That's another option.
I've tried Wix once. I just didn't jive with the interface. I mean, there's tons of options out there, but I just didn't like the interface as much. I know I've heard people say that Wix works with Google to get some of the best SEO on their websites. That's one thing I have heard.
Yeah. One thing I will talk about with Wix is their interface. Actually, I don't know how long it's been since you've used Wix, but their interface has actually become a whole lot more visually pleasing on the back end. And that was really easy to like navigate for me because I had a Wix, I had a free site from Wix for a little bit, and that's what I was like running all of my stuff on. But I didn't really like using a free site. And I really wanted WordPress because I knew what I was doing with WordPress. I didn't have to worry about I don't know. I knew what I was doing with WordPress because I'd had a WordPress site before. And I knew how to build with WordPress because WordPress wasn't something that I don't know, it wasn't unfamiliar to me. Wix was very drag and drop, but I didn't really like the options I had with Wix. It was easy to put together, but I didn't really like the options that I had. I didn't like the site that I got out of it because it just wasn't my best work. But the actual interface for Wix it's very visually pleasing, and it's actually pretty intuitive to navigate now. I don't know how long it's been.
Taylor, what are your recommendations for websites? I think I know, but I would like to hear what your thoughts are.
So mine, like I said, if you're just doing a basic website for WordPress, just use DreamHost. It's the simplest way to go. You could also do other things, like you could, use something that Michael's maybe talking about. I don't know. But, it just all depends. The only issue I've had with DreamHost is that sometimes their speeds can be a little bit less than optimal. But if you're just doing like a brochure site for your business, it's not really that big a deal. But like for Techopolis, like we're doing a whole bunch of other stuff, more interactive sites. And so we're using something new.
I think those are really the highlights. If you're starting a business, those are, of course, accounting software, all of those things. But these are kind of the highlights of what you're going to need to start a business. And, we can do episodes on each of these categories if we wanted to. But I think that this is kind of sums up some possibilities in each category. So, Techopolis, I think we should round out the episode. What do we use? And so Techopolis itself uses Zoom Phone. We use WordPress with a service called SpinUp WP because we can customize things. We're a tech company, so it's easy for us to do that. We use Zoom Phone, and we use What am I missing? HoneyBook and Stripe.
Stripe.
Yep.
Don't forget Stripe.
Mm-hmm.
I also kind of wanted to talk about Zcal a little bit because I don't think they're a small business, and I don't really think they, get much love. So what Zcal is basically a free appointment booking. So like if you guys have ever heard of Calendly, you know how if you've ever been on the user end of Calendly, you click on someone's link, you'll pick a date, you'll pick a time, and you'll be asked some questions, and then it'll book a Zoom link for a call with someone. Now, basically, Zcal does that for free for like the one person user level for free forever. So there you go. Zcal. That's Zcal. That's Zcal for you. It does everything that Calendly does, but for free forever unless you are an enterprise plan.
Yep.
So there you go.
And they're working on bringing that out. There are other solutions like Calendly. There's Fantastical has their own version. Zoom has their own. Even Microsoft has their own. Everybody has their own scheduling software now. So it's just, I would, in my opinion, check out Zcal. It's a great solution. But also look at what you have built into your own software. Like if you have Microsoft Office, especially if you're paying $15 a month, you have your own booking software.
Yeah.
You could get Calendly. That's an option. If you want, if you have Fantastical and you're in the Apple world, that's an option too. So there's
Google Calendar has an option. So I just scheduled some office hours yesterday with my professor, and she just had a Google Calendar with some slots to open up and book time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they have their own. They released that. I might have had a hand in that. That was one of like my main requests of features is an appointment booking, because if you had an appointment booking that linked straight to your calendar, you would immediately be able to book hours straight into people's calendar, and it wasn't really, it wasn't hard to use. It just sounded like so simple and so right. I didn't know Zoom had an appointment booking software. Can we talk about that a split second?
Yes, they do. And we tried it. I think it's like it's an extra expense per account. So it's not I think it's like $6 a month per account.
It wasn't, and it had some accessibility problems too. So
weird. Yep. I didn't even know that existed. I know Microsoft had one because they've been trying to compete with Calendly for years. But I don't know, man. This whole openings software, appointment booking software didn't really come around in my mind. And I didn't think I ever needed an appointment booking software until one day I realized that a bunch of people had an appointment booking software. And I realized that it would be really useful for me. So now I have one. But
I think we could have an entire episode on the proper use of appointment calendar software.
Right. We probably could.
Because I think that there is a right way and a wrong way to use it. So, yeah, I think that's a good topic for another episode.
Maybe next episode. We don't know.
Possibly.
Tune in next time.
Mm-hmm.
But shall we wrap up the episode?
I think it'd be a good idea.
All right. Well, I guess, Michael, since you're co-host, I can start with you, and then we can go on to Taylor. What's your business? What's your business? What's your business tip? And where can they find you online?
So my business is Techopolis Online Solutions. We do app development, web development, accessibility, and copywriting. And my tip for this time is when you're looking for new tools, figure out what your business goal is. Figure out what you're doing. Come up with a plan and research what software will help you reach that goal or your plan the best. Also look at, your preferences. If you're an Apple person, what do you need to be on Apple platforms? If you're a Windows person, what do you need to run your business on Windows? we have a lot of talks on our different podcasts about, what works best. On Mac, it's more the native apps. On Windows, it's becoming more of a web platform. So what works best for what you're doing, and figure out the solution that works best for you, and talk to people and say, what do you use? Talk to other business owners, use communities, find out. And that's my recommendation, because there's so many different options out there. It's what do you pick? We even go through several different versions of the same tool per year, because sometimes they make things inaccessible. Sometimes things get moved around. So sometimes it's just finding the better tool at the right time. So that's my tip. And you can find me online. You can email me, mikedowies@icloud.com. You can find me on Mastodon, mikedowies@techopolis.social. And I'm on Facebook as Michael Dowies, and you can find me everywhere. So, and on LinkedIn. So, although the interesting thing is I need to get my SEO on LinkedIn, because another Michael Dowies is before me in the search. So just be careful. Yep.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I can help you out with that, Mike. Yep. Anyways, Taylor, go ahead.
Let's see. My business tip is, when you are looking at software, kind of have a budget in terms of like, I want to stay under X amount of expenses. Because if you don't, you're going to be in like a month later, you're going to realize, holy crap, my expenses are high. That might be good for tax deductions. That's not good for having money in your pocket right now. So what you want to do is you want to have a certain budget where, say, for example, I want my business expenses under $200, or I want my business expenses under $100. That way, and you can kind of make a tech stack based on those different qualifications of, okay, I have $200, I guess, in my head to spend on X softwares. Let's see what I can do to optimize that $200 a month, so that way I can get more money in my pocket. Where you can find me online, you can find me at techopolis.social. You can also find me on YouTube and LinkedIn as well Taylor Arndt. I am also pretty much all over the web. So if you search for my name, you should be able to find me.
What's your business?
My business is Taylor Arndt LLC. I do bookkeeping, payroll, virtual assistant, and other services. I specialize in service-based businesses, and I would love to help you guys.
And of course, the financial person picks the finance tip. Anyways.
Yep.
As for me, my business tip that relates to this episode is probably use these free trials wisely. Yeah. There are a lot of software as a service for business that uses no credit required, no credit card required trials. Use them wisely. Try a software for a week and see if it actually works in with your plan. And if it doesn't, try another. Maybe don't try them all at once, because that could become a mess. If you like to try them all at once, then be my guest. But maybe don't try them all at once. Use these free trials wisely. Try different softwares. Find out what works for you. The most you do is you find one you like, and then you actually put money into it so that you can use it for the time and the goings on. If you don't have one you like, then you'll find another one and you'll try another one, and maybe you can find another one that works for you. Use those trials wisely. That's my business tip. As for my business, my name is Alicia Geary. I am a freelance digital copywriter specializing in email marketing and website content. I can also do website design, but nothing out of I'm not a developer. You can find me online as Alicia Geary on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can find me on Discord as Blind One Lives or Alicia Geary. You can find me on Mastodon as Alicia at techopolis.social. And you can find me pretty much everywhere else as Blind One Lives or Alicia Gary. Just look me up. You'll find me. Trust me. I think that is going to do it for another episode of Visibility. If you liked what you heard, then feel free to share the content with your friends. And thanks for listening. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.